All right, so writing equations of lines, talk about parallel and perpendicular lines. Okay, so we're going to start with parallel lines. Key information is that parallel lines never cross. They have the same slope. Okay, parallel lines have the same slope. Okay, so whatever the slope of one line is, if a line is parallel to it, it has that same slope to that. That's the key piece of information for parallel lines. Okay? So let's start with writing the equation of a line that goes through 5, 3. That's parallel to y equals negative 2/5 x plus 2. We're going to write an equation of a line that goes through this point and then is parallel to that equation. What part of that equation, or first of all, what form is that equation in? It's in slope-intercept form. What part of that do we need? Exactly right. The only part of that equation I need is the slope. This is exactly what we've been doing. You're just getting your slope from an equation instead of them saying the slope is this. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So your point is 5, 3, and your slope is that. Why do you even need the point if you're trying to figure out the slope?
We need the slope, and we got to write the equation of the line. The same reason we need 5 and 3. We're writing an equation of the line just like we've been doing. We're getting our slope from another equation, though. Instead of us having to find it with a slope formula or with them just saying slope equals negative 2/5, we're getting it from that equation. The 5, 3, we're going to use it because we now have a point and a slope. So what form uses points and slopes? Point slope form. Let's start with that. Y minus 3, negative 2/5, x minus 5, right? That's the point slope form. Guys, get the earbuds out of your ears and get your desk back in line. All right, so there's point slope form. Well, what if they wanted it in slope intercept form? What would you do? We got it in point slope form, but what if they wanted it in slope intercept form? Where do you start? You start with point slope form, and then you get what by itself? Y. So you distribute. If it wanted point slope form, that's what it did. Then there were others that had asked for slope intercept form. There are others that had asked for standard form. Only if it asked for, you had to put your answer in the form that it asked for. That's the last thing that I said before I handed the quiz out. Make sure you read the heading above the problem so that you know what form you're going for. Then we would add 3, correct? Y equals negative 2/5 x plus 5. Negative 2/5 times negative 5 is where that came from. So that's slope intercept form. Well, what if they ask for it in standard form? Yeah. I'm just going to rewrite the problem over here on the side. And I would add 2/5 x. that standard form? No. How? Multiply everybody by 5 to get rid of the fraction. So that's 2x, 5y, 25. And there we have standard form, which is the last form that we could do. We've done it for a week and a half. All right, let's say that it goes through 0, -7, parallel to 6x minus y equals 1. Do we know the slope of that equation? I heard yes and I heard no. Which one's right? No is correct. Because it's not in, what form is that in? Standard form. You can't pull the slope off of standard form. You got to get what by itself first? Y. So we do that by subtracting 6x. Last move, divide by -1. What part of that do we use? The 6, the slope, that's the one we use. So if we want it in point slope form, that's point slope form. But sometimes they want it in slope intercept form. Exactly the same way the quiz did, exactly the same way the worksheets have for the last 4 days. It says it right above the problem, what form to put it in. So multiply the 6 out. Technically that's 6x plus 0 or minus 0, doesn't matter. Subtract 7. 6x minus 7. There's our slope intercept. And we can get that in standard form, right?
So what is the parallel thing?
The parallel is where you get your slope. That's what the parallel does. Perpendicular is going to be the same thing. You're going to get your slope from that equation that it's parallel to. Parallel is going to be the same slope. You're going to use the slope from the equation they give you. Perpendicular, we got to do a little something different to it. Okay, Jason. I distributed 6 to both those things. 6 times x is 6x. 6 times 0 is technically there's a minus 0 out there, but I didn't put it there because it really doesn't do anything. Yeah. Well, not for every single problem, but you got to get to whatever form they ask for. And the process to get to whatever form they ask for is exactly the same every time. Start with point slope, go to whichever one the next one is to get there, and stop at the one they ask for. If they ask for point slope, you just stop right here. If they ask for slope intercept, stop right here. If they ask for standard, you get this in standard form. Subtract 6x from both sides. Negative 6x plus y equals -7. Or 6x minus y equals +7. Those are in standard form. Okay. Parallel lines have the same slope. Perpendicular lines do not have the same slope. We'll get to that in a minute. All right, let's look at one that's a little exceptional. It goes through -2, 8, and it's parallel to y equals -2. What's the slope of that equation? 0, right? It's a horizontal line. So the slope is 0. So if I write that in point slope form, be y minus 8, 0, x plus 2, right? You could simplify that a little bit and get y minus 8 equals 0. I would take either of those for point slope form. Now, how do I get that into slope intercept form? Get y by itself, so just add 8, right? That's slope intercept form, but it's also standard form. Because there's no fractions involved and there's no x to get on the same side with it. So you're done. That's standard form and slope intercept form for this one. Pretty easy. Not quite as easy as the next one. Sure. It is nice. All right. Through 5, 3, but parallel to x equals -4. What's the slope of x equals -4? Why? It's a vertical line. X equals a number, remember, is a vertical line. And the slope of a vertical line is undefined. So this slope is undefined. And when it's an undefined slope, we had some problems like this on the worksheets this last week. Or in the last week and a half, we've been working on this stuff. The equation for that uses only the x value. If it's parallel to a vertical line, then it better be another vertical line, right? What's the equation of a vertical line that goes through x or to the 5, 3? X equals 5. And guess what? That's all three forms. Undefined is what he said. Undefined is the slope. Okay? Undefined is the slope. That's the easiest ones because there's only one equation type to write. No matter which one they ask for, you're writing x equals the number, the x value from the ordered pair. That's the easiest one. Because it's x equals a number. X equals a number is a vertical line when you graph it. The slope of a vertical line is undefined. And then if it's y equals a number, it's a horizontal line. The slope of every horizontal line is 0. So that's where we use the 0 there. All right, so let's talk about perpendicular lines. What do y'all know about perpendicular lines? They do cross. At blank degrees. How much? 90 degrees, yes. Perpendicular lines cross at 90 degrees. That's why they're called perpendicular. Other lines can cross, but they're not called perpendicular unless they cross at 90 degrees. Yeah, the x-axis and the y-axis are perpendicular lines. And they have opposite reciprocal slopes. The easiest way to remember that is flip and change. Flip and change. Flip the fraction, change its sign. Reciprocal, remember, means flip the fraction over. Opposite means change its sign. Okay, so example, let's say it goes through -1, -5, perpendicular to y equals -2/3 Let's do negative 1/3. That'll be easier on us for the first one. Plus 7. The slope of that line is negative 1/3. What would be the perpendicular slope? Flip it over, change the sign. So 3/1, positive because it was negative to begin with. So the new, you always, yes, you flip it and change the sign. So if it's negative, the new slope should be positive and flip it over. If it were positive, you flip it and make it a negative. So that's for perpendicular. So the new slope is positive 3/1 or just positive 3. And then we're going to use the same everything that we've done in the past. You've got a point, you've got a slope. Start with point slope form. The new one, the perpendicular line. So the perpendicular slope is this. That's the one we're going to use. So y plus 5, 3, x plus 1. Right? That's point slope form. How would you get slope intercept form? After you distribute. You got to distribute first and then minus the 5. That's right. All right, 5, y equals 3x minus 2. Right. So to get it in standard, you'd subtract 3x. You get negative 3x plus y equals negative 2, or 3x minus y equals positive 2. And those are in standard form. That's slope intercept form. So no matter what form they ask for, which one do you always start with? Point slope. Unless it's undefined slope. And then it's just x equals whatever the x value is. No matter what form they ask for. They're all the same. Let's do this one. Through negative 3, positive 8, perpendicular, and I'm going to abbreviate perpendicular to y equals 3/5 x minus 1. Yeah, flip it and then change the sign. It's positive to begin with. New one's got to be negative. Okay, so that's our new slope. Start with point slope form. I minus 8, negative 5/3, x plus 3. Right? Take this slope, flip it over, change the sign. So 5/3, and then make it negative because the original one was positive. It's always the opposite sign for perpendicular. Then the reciprocal of zero slope is undefined slope. Because think about a zero slope's a horizontal line. Undefined slope is what kind of line? Vertical. Vertical line and horizontal line are perpendicular to one another. Just like the floor has zero slope, right? The wall has undefined slope. They meet at a 90-degree angle at the floor, right there in that corner. That's what keeps the building standing, guys. If it didn't meet at 90 degrees, it's pretty easy to push over. Because they meet at 90 degrees, it doesn't fall over as easily. Okay. All right. So There's point slope form. Let's get that in slope intercept form. Distribute. Negative 5/3 x minus 5. Add 8. Negative 5/3 x plus 3. To do what? So this is slope intercept. Put it in standard, we need to do something else first. Add the 5/3 x first. Get x and y on the same side. And then, yes, we do multiply everybody by 3. Get 5x plus 3y equals 9. And there's standard. Last one. Perpendicular to y equals 5. What's the slope of that line? 0. So perpendicular to 0 slope is up and down, which is called undefined. Now, what's the equation of an undefined line look like? That's what the graph looks like. What's the equation look like? That's the only equation you have to write when it does that. Okay. Nothing crazy about that.